Swami Sachtil Anand Shila Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Vaishnava Sarvam Jagannath Swami Maharaj Ki Jai Shivadevananda Acharya Shivali Vibhushan Prabhu Ki Shirasika Acharya Shivishwana Thakur Thakur Ki Shanaratam Shiva Shanaratam Putraya Ki Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhakta Das Raghunath Shat Goswami Prabhu Ki Shri Srudhara Raya Ramanda Shri Gora Parashat Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shlaidas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sako Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Maya Purdam Ki Mangadevi Ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Kiri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Devi Ki Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Shri Tulosi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Gopishwar Mahadev Ki Braj Dham Ki Jagannath Baladeva Subhadra Devi Surisan Chakra Chekaram Tata Gopinath Ki Narasingha Bhagavan Ki Bhakta Pravara Prahlad Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Samagata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shinkai Gar Premanande Hari Hari
Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikayai Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashtacha Desha Tarane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswamiti Namani Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikai Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namani Shri Krishna Lila Kataneshu Daksham Audauri Madhurya Gunaishcha Yuktam Varam Varenyam Purusham Mahantam Narayanam Tam Shirsha Namami Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Yangayate Gurum Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Trishe Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Vrindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashto Tarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, who came to the Western countries armed with the Srimad Bhagavatam, and who introduced the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, to the whole world through his miraculous gift of the Krishna book, the whole 10th canto. And in 2 days, day after tomorrow, is Sri Krishna Janmastami. So I was thinking that it is very suitable to read Srila Prabhupada's amazing preface to his Krishna book and introduction. And also I wanted to just read a few verses from the end of the 9th canto, where Shukadeva Goswami, just before the 10th canto, he's introducing the whole family lineage of Krishna, and then he introduces Krishna in a few verses. So we'll read that, and I also offer my same unlimited Dandavat pranams and Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashtatara Santa Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Leela Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Ashto Tarasata Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. These two personalities also introduced the fine points and the deep purports of all of our Gaudiya Acharyas in the pastimes of Sri Krishna, and how they brought everyone to the Dham, and how they introduced all this Tattva Siddhanta from our Gaudiya Acharyas. My unlimited obeisances to their lotus feet. And my Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Shri Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat pranams to all of the Vaishnavas and all of the Vaishnavis. So, the preface of the summary of the 10th canto in the form of the book Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is a very great favorite of all of the older devotees who joined the movement and used to read it regularly, whether we were taking prasadam, someone was reading, or we were going back and forth in the Sankirtan vehicle and someone was reading, or at night we're having milk prasadam before taking rest, and devotees reading the Krishna book. So we grew up with the Krishna book and the Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami, which is also telling all incredible pastimes and all the depth of what does it mean to be a devotee of Krishna and to experience Krishna Bhakti Rasa. So Srila Prabhupada gave these two incredible books. Then he gave the teachings of Lord Chaitanya so that everyone could understand who is Krishna in his golden form and what are his teachings. Because Srila Prabhupada gave his pranam mantra, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani. So the teachings, the Vani, the instructions of Gaura, and our Gurudev specified what are those instructions of Gaura. And he said, that which has come directly from the mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Siksha, Sanatana Siksha. Even Ramananda Roy Samvad, which is coming from Mahaprabhu into the heart of Ramananda Roy, and then coming from him. Prakashananda Saraswati, the conversion of all the Mayavadi philosophers, sannyasis. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the most formidable of all, and how Mahaprabhu gave instructions. And there are many more. Oh, sorry, Sikshastakam. That's at the very end of the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, the last chapter. And Mahaprabhu and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami are also giving a brief, like, little comment after the verse, each one of the verses. But our Gaudiya Acharyas have given so much commentary, especially Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, on the Sikshastakam and the deep meanings, Bhajan Rahasya, everything. So, it all started with Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, then his first 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then his Sri Ishupanishad, I don't know, maybe one other, but then Easy Journey, yeah, to other planets. But then, Krishna book. And the amazing story, Shama Sundar's story of how Srila Prabhupada urged him to ask George Harrison for the donation for the printing of the Krishna book, that amazing story. So, now the preface, Srila Prabhupada is quoting the 4th shloka of the 10th canto. And that 4th shloka is being spoken about who one should hear this Srimad Bhagavatam from. What kind of person one should hear. Nivritta tarashayar upagiyamanad. Bhavo sadach trotra mano biramat. Ka uttama shloka gunanuvadat. Puman virajyeta vina pushutna. This is the verse. He's not giving the immediate translation of that verse. But what I'll do, before we go into the preface, is I will read that verse. So in that verse, oh sorry, the chapter is not the verse. Chapter 1, verse 4. Okay. So Nivritta Tarashayar Upagiyamadat. Here, this verse is telling glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. And such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false, temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. So the term is Nivritta Tarshai. Nivritta means released from. Tarshai means lust or material activities. Right? So, Upagiyamanad, that which is being described or sung. Bhavo sadach, which is the right medicine for the material disease. Shrotra, the process of oral reception. Mana, this subject matter, abhiramat. Mano abhiramat, very pleasing to the mind, abhiram. Vibration, such glorification. Ka uttama shloka gunanuvadat. This glorification of the Supreme Lord, uttama shloka, guna anuvadat, describing all of his activities and his qualities. Puman virajeta vina pushugna. The question is being asked, who would not be attracted to these descriptions? Except for one category of person. Pushugna, killer of animals. Pashu means animals, but also in this context, killer of their own self, the soul. So it says, such glorification that is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple, performed in the parampara system, is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine. Bhavo Oshadi. Oshadi means medicine. Bhava Oshad. The medicine to cure bhava, material existence. So descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? So there's a very nice purport by Srila Prabhupada, one of his latter purports, because he only went in the 10th canto up to chapter 14. So, now returning to our Krishna book. So he quotes this verse. Then he says, in the Western countries, when someone sees the cover of a book like Krishna, he immediately asks, who's Krishna? Who's the girl with Krishna? Etc. The immediate answer is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How is that? How is that? How is he the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Because he conforms in exact detail to descriptions of the Supreme Being, the Godhead. In other words, Krishna is the Godhead because he's all attractive. Outside the principle of all attraction, there's no meaning to the word Godhead. How is it that one can be all attractive? Well, first of all, if one is very wealthy and he has great riches, then he becomes attractive to the people in general. Oh, a very rich person is coming. Let's go and see him, shake his hand. So, if a person is very rich, very wealthy, similarly, if someone is very powerful, he also becomes attractive. And if someone is very famous, he also becomes attractive. And if someone is very beautiful, or wise, or unattached to all kinds of possessions, he also becomes attractive. So, from practical experience, we can observe that one is attractive due to wealth, power, fame, beauty, wisdom, and renunciation. Of course, that we know that that's called the Six Opulences. Sad Aishwarya Purna. 6 opulences in full. I always liked this explanation from the beginning. It really made sense to me, you know, coming from the background that I came from. It really made sense to me that, yeah, God, he has to have all this. He must be beautiful. He's powerful. He's wealthy. He's unlimited knowledge, even detachment, you know. So Prabhupada, I've heard innumerable lectures of Prabhupada where he's explaining the 6 opulences. Why? Because unless you understand the 6 opulences and how the Supreme Being who has created everything is full of those 6 opulences, you don't fully understand the Supreme Being. You have to understand this aspect, that he's Sad Aishwarya Purna, completely full, Purna, of all 6 opulences. Not partial, complete full. Om Purnam Adhat Purnam Midam. He is Purnam. So, now one who is in possession of all the 6 of these opulences at the same time, who possesses them to an unlimited degree, is understood to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These opulences of the Godhead, they are delineated by Parashara Muni, who is a great Vedic authority. We have seen, Parashara Muni is the father of Srila Vyasadeva. And he's the one that we are quoting for that verse. Aishwaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashriya jnana vairagyayos sannam bhagam itingina. That quotation is from Parashara Muni. So he's mentioning a great Vedic authority is telling this. These opulences of the Godhead are delineated by him. We have seen many rich persons, many powerful persons, many famous persons, many beautiful persons, many learned and scholarly persons, and persons in the renounced order of life unattached to material possessions. But we have never seen any one person who is unlimitedly and simultaneously wealthy, powerful, famous, beautiful, wise, and unattached like Krishna in the history of humanity. Understand? No one like Krishna, ever, ever. So, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a historical person who appeared on this earth 5,000 years ago. He stayed on this earth for 125 years, and he played exactly like a human being. But his activities were unparalleled. From the very moment of his appearance, every one of his activities is unparalleled in the history of the world. From the very moment of his appearance. And therefore, anyone who knows what we mean by Godhead, they will accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No one is equal to the Godhead, and no one is greater than him. That is the import of the familiar saying, God is great. Yes. So there are so many different religious faiths and so forth that proclaim God is great. But the difference is how great. And what's the proof of his greatness? Yes, it's certainly a great thing to create, is it not? Everybody's always awestruck. Those who study the minute, aspects of material objects in this world, including the bodies of people and so forth, and down to the microbiological level and so forth. They're always stunned and astonished by this creation, right? How everybody has their systems, the blood system pumping, the heart pumping, the lung, everything's working together perfectly, right? So people who study the material world, they study the trees, they study the other living entities, they study geology, they study archaeology. I mean, everything about the material world is very fascinating, right? It's like, because of being the reflection of the spiritual eternal energy, Chit Shakti, so the Maya Shakti is also very, very fascinating, but it's illusory, because every object is impermanent. Whereas in the spiritual world, every object, every blade of grass, everything is eternal, never ever deteriorating one iota. So, although this material creation is so astonishing, and it's proof of the existence of God, Anybody that studies the creation, they have to come to this conclusion. Even Einstein, he came to that conclusion, and many other great philosophers and so forth. The proof is there everywhere. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji Ki Jai Jai Radhe Jai Guru. Yes, so, but yet, the creator of all these objects here is not the Supreme. There's other agents who are doing that work. Like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and so forth. All the upper demigods, and they're jivas. Lord Shiva is, of course, a mixture, but some jiva potency is in him. And they're very highly empowered. But they're not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Neither is that one Supreme Personality of Godhead directly involved. But yet, he's everywhere. He's within everything. He's aware of everything. He knows everything. But he himself is living in his spiritual world, the land of love. Nothing but loving transactions and happiness, and everything's going on there. And he descended here to demonstrate his existence in the spiritual world. So, that is the import of the familiar saying, God is great. No one is equal to him. No one is greater than him. There are various classes of men in the world who speak of God in different ways. But according to the Vedic literature and according to the great acharyas, the authorized persons versed in the knowledge of God in all ages, like acharyas Shankar, Ramanuja, Madhva, Vishnu Swami, Lord Chaitanya, and all their followers by disciplic succession, all unanimously agree that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as far as we, the followers of Vedic civilization, are concerned, we accept the Vedic history of the whole universe, which consists of different planetary systems called Svargalokas, higher planetary systems, Martyalokas, intermediary planetary systems, and Patalokas, lower planetary systems. We accept this. The modern historians of this earth, they cannot supply historical evidence of events that occurred before 5,000 years ago. Right? Go to any museum, the farthest back they can stretch practically is Egyptian civilization, and they don't know the exact. They speculate on the year, the time period. But before that, they don't have any knowledge. So, the modern historians of this earth cannot supply historical evidences of events that occurred before 5,000 years ago. And the anthropologists, they say that 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens had not appeared on this planet because evolution had not reached that point. But the Vedic histories, the Puranas and the Mahabharata, they relate human histories which extend millions and billions of years into the past. For example, from these scriptures, we are given the histories of Krishna's appearances and his disappearances millions and billions of years ago. And in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that both he and Arjuna had had many births before, and that he, Krishna, could remember all of them, and that Arjuna could not. So this illustrates the difference between the knowledge of Krishna and that of Arjuna. Arjuna might have been a very great warrior and a well-cultured member of the Kuru dynasty, but after all, he was an ordinary human being, whereas Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the possessor of unlimited knowledge. And because he possesses unlimited knowledge, Krishna has a memory that is boundless. Krishna's knowledge is so perfect that he remembers all the incidents of his appearances some millions and billions of years in the past. But Arjuna's memory and knowledge are limited by time and space, for he is an ordinary human being. Now, in the 4th chapter, Krishna states that he can remember instructing the lessons of the Bhagavad Gita some millions of years ago to the sun god Vivasvata. So nowadays, it is the fashion of the atheistic class of men to try to become God by following some mystic process. Generally, the atheists claim to be God by dint of their imagination or their meditational prowess. But Krishna is not that kind of God. He does not become God by manufacturing some mystic process of meditation, nor does he become God by undergoing the severe austerities of the mystic yogic exercises. Properly speaking, he never becomes God because he is the Godhead in all circumstances. So within the prison of his maternal uncle Kamsa, where his father and mother were confined, Krishna appeared outside his mother's body as the four-handed Vishnu Narayan. And then he turned himself into a baby, and he told his father to carry him to the house of Nanda Maharaj and his wife Yashoda. So when Krishna was just a small baby, the gigantic demoness Putana attempted to kill him, but when he sucked her breast, he pulled out her life. That is the difference between the real Godhead and a God manufactured in the mystic factory. Krishna to practice the mystic yoga process, yet he manifested himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead at every step, from infancy to childhood, from childhood to boyhood, from boyhood to young manhood. In this book, Krishna, all of his activities as a human being are described. As a human being, he always maintains his identity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So since Krishna is all attractive, which is the point that Prabhupada made in the very first beginning of this preface, since Krishna is all attractive, one should know that all his desires should be focused on Krishna. It's a good argument. Since Krishna is all attractive, therefore, you should focus all of your desires on Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the individual person is the proprietor or the master of his own body, but that Krishna, who is the super soul present in everyone's heart, he is the supreme proprietor and he is the supreme master. Even the trees. He is the proprietor of every body, and he is there as the super soul. As such, if we concentrate our loving propensities upon Krishna only, then immediately universal love, unity, and tranquility will be automatically just by doing what? Concentrating our loving propensities upon Krishna only, exclusively on Krishna. So, when one waters the root of a tree, he automatically waters the branches, twigs. And when one supplies food to the stomach through the mouth, he satisfies all the various parts of the body. The art of focusing one's attention on the Supreme and giving one's love to him, it is called Krishna consciousness. the art of focusing one's attention on the Supreme and giving one's love to Him is called Krishna consciousness. We have inaugurated the Krishna consciousness movement so that everyone can satisfy his propensity for loving others simply by directing his love towards Krishna. The whole world is very anxious to satisfy the dormant propensity of love for others. But the various invented methods like socialism, communism, altruism, humanitarianism, and nationalism, along with whatever else may be manufactured for the peace and the prosperity of the world, they are all useless and frustrating because of our gross ignorance of the art of loving Krishna. Does a person become full of peace and happiness and joy by loving the United States, make America great again, or China, or any country that they live in just by nationalism, or humanitarianism by doing some good? Does that satisfy? No, it doesn't satisfy. Why? Because these are all temporary. They're all temporary objects of this material world. They're all false. They're not the real object of our loving propensity, whereas Krishna is the eternal, real object of every single living entity's loving propensity. And that's the reason why, if we focus all of our attention and our loving moods towards Him, we will realize peace and prosperity and all of these things will be immediately realized. So, he goes on and he says, generally people think that by advancing the cause of moral principles and religious rights, that they will be happy. And others may think that happiness can be achieved by economic development. Just make a lot of money, then you become happy. Prabhupada used to say, money is the honey. People think like that. And yet others, they think that simply by sense gratification, they will be happy. But the real fact is that people can be happy only by loving Krishna. Only. Krishna can perfectly reciprocate one's loving propensities in different relationships called mellows or rasas. And basically there are 12 loving relationships. And one can love Krishna as the supreme unknown, or as the supreme master, as the supreme friend, the supreme child, the supreme lover. These are the 5 basic love rasas. One can also love Krishna indirectly in 7 different relationships, which are apparently different from the 5 primary relationships. All in all, however, if one simply reposes his dormant loving propensity in Krishna, then his life becomes successful. This is not a fiction, but is a fact that can be realized by practical application. One can directly perceive the effects that love for Krishna has on his life. So in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the science of Krishna consciousness is called the king of all knowledge, Rajavidya. It is called the king of all knowledge, the king of all confidential things, and the supreme science of transcendental realization. Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam, Pavitram Idam Uttamam. So, yet we can directly experience the results of this science of Krishna consciousness because it is very easy to practice and is very pleasurable. Whatever percentage of Krishna consciousness we can perform will become an eternal asset to our life, for it is imperishable in all circumstances. It has now been actually proved that today's confused and frustrated younger generation in the Western countries can directly perceive the results of channeling the loving propensity towards Krishna alone. Has it not been proved? We're sitting here. You're sitting here. It's been proved. So it is said that although one executes severe austerities, penances, and sacrifices in his life, severe austerities, penances, sacrifices, even if he executes that, but if he fails to awaken his dormant love for Krishna, then all his penances are to be considered useless. And on the other hand, if one has awakened his dormant love for Krishna, then what is the use in executing austerities and penances unnecessarily? The Krishna consciousness movement is the unique gift of Lord Chaitanya to the fallen souls of this age. It is a very simple method, which has actually been carried out during the last 4 years in the Western countries. And there is no doubt that this movement can satisfy the dormant loving propensities of humanity. This book, Krishna, it is another presentation to help the Krishna consciousness movement in the Western world. This transcendental work of literature, it is published with profuse illustrations. People love to read various kinds of fiction to spend their time and energy. Now, this tendency can be directed to Krishna. The result will be the imperishable satisfaction of the soul, both individually and collectively. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita that even a little effort expended on the path of Krishna consciousness can save one from the greatest danger. Hundreds of thousands of examples can be cited of people who have escaped the greatest dangers of life due to a slight advancement in Krishna consciousness. We therefore request everyone to take advantage of this great transcendental literary work. One will find that by reading one page after another, an immense treasure of knowledge in art, science, literature, philosophy, and religion will be revealed. And ultimately, by reading this one book, Krishna, love of Godhead will fructify. My grateful acknowledgement is due to Sriman George Harrison, now chanting Hare Krishna, for his liberal contribution of $19,000 to meet the entire cost of printing this volume. May Krishna bestow upon this nice boy further advancement in Krishna consciousness. That blessing Prabhupada gave to him resulted in him being with Shyamasundar and Mukunda, his wife and his son, only those 4 people with him when he departed from this world. Such a blessed departure. That blessing of Prabhupada to him. So then he says, and at last, my ever willing blessings are bestowed upon Sriman Shyamasundar Das Adhikari, Sriman Brahmananda Das Brahmachari, Sriman Hayagriva Das Adhikari, Sriman Satsvarup Das Adhikari, Srimati Devahuti Devi Dasi, Srimati Jadharani Devi Dasi, Sriman Murli